Hello everyone, welcome to the Knowledge Hub. Today we are going to discussing about the types of punishments. Various kinds of punishments are prescribed for various types of crimes. Various punishment theories are proposed with the various intentions. The variations in the modality of punishment occur because of the variation of societal reaction to law breaking. There are three types of punishments. One is the corporal punishment, second one is the transportation, and third one is the as per IPC. In corporal punishments, there is flogging, mutilation, branding, stoning, and pillory. In transportation, there is exile and banishment. As per the IPC, there is a death penalty, life imprisonment, forfeiture of property, and the fine. We will discuss later about the corporal punishments and transportation. Now we are going to discussing about as per IPC types of punishments. We will discuss about kinds of punishments, that is the death penalty, life imprisonment. There is two kinds of imprisonment. One is the rigorous imprisonment and simple imprisonment. And fourth one is the forfeiture of the property. And last one is the fine. Death penalty. We can call death penalty as a capital punishment. Here capital means head or top of the column. And capital punishment is the removal of head. The capital punishment is the removal of head. The sections under IPC 121 IPC, 132 IPC, 194 IPC, 302, 303, 307 and 396. In these sections, the death penalty will be imposed on accused. What is the 121 IPC? 121 IPC is the waging or attempting to wage war or abating the waging of war against the government. It is against the government. Against the government. And what is the section 132 IPC? Abatement of mutiny actually committed. And 194 IPC is giving or fabricating false evidence upon which an innocent person suffers death is the 194 IPC. And 302 IPC is the murder. And 303 is the punishment for murder by a life convict. This section was struck down by the Supreme Court, holding that it was unconstitutional while disposing the case in the Mithu versus State of Punjab. Case is Mithu versus State of Punjab. State of Punjab in the year 1983. The Supreme Court holding that it was unconstitutional while disposing the case in the Mithu versus State of Punjab. And 307 is the attempt to murder by a person under sentence of imprisonment for life if hurt is caused. And 396 IPC is the dacoity with murder. The courts have high range of discretionary powers in passing death sentences. The death punishment is also called as the capital punishment. It is the maximum punishment possible to be imposed on a criminal. Thus, punishment occupies topest position among the grades of punishments. This punishment can be imposed in extreme cases and rarely that too in extremely grave crimes. The capital punishment can be imposed on a criminal who commits a pre-planned and premeditated murder in cold blood. The offences with sections in which the death penalty can be imposed are already explained, and the most of the developed countries have removed death sentences from their respective penal code due to agitations caused by the seditions of socialists, reformists and criminologists. In India too, there is a serious discussion on this topic. Sections from 366 to 371 CRPC, which explains about the submission of death sentences for confirmation. Submission of death sentences for confirmation, and section 413 to 416, which explains about the execution, suspension and postponement of capital punishments. Execution, suspension and postponement of capital sentences. These are the provisions under the 413 to the 416. And the next kind is imprisonment for life. Imprisonment for life. Before 1955, the words transportation for life was used. The Code of Criminal Procedure Amendment Act 1955. Amendment Act substituted the words imprisonment for life in place of transportation of life. ఎప్పుడు 1955 అమెండ్మెంట్ యాక్ట్, సిఆర్పిసి అమెండ్మెంట్ యాక్ట్లో ఇంప్రిజన్మెంట్ ఫర్ లైఫ్ అనే వర్డ్ని ఇంట్రొడ్యూస్ చేశారు. The general public thinks that imprisonment for life means only 14 years. Only 14 years. And the convict shall be released as soon as the 14 years period is lapsed. It is a purely wrong presumption. It's a purely wrong presumption that actually the punishment under the imprisonment for life means imprisonment for whole of the remaining period of the convicted person's natural life. Punishment under the imprisonment for life means imprisonment for whole of the life of the convicted persons is a natural life. During the British rule, the convicts under the transportation for life was used to be deported to the Andaman and other colonies in islands and were taken forever from the society of all who are acquainted with him. After independence, such system was stopped. Now the convicts under the imprisonment for life are imprisoned in the prisons of the states concerned. The life convict is not entitled to automatic release on completion of 14 years imprisonment unless on special occasions. They can be released. The government may pass an order considering the good behavior. స్పెషల్ కండిషన్స్ ఏంటంటే దాంట్లో కూడా గుడ్ బిహేవియర్ ఉండాలి, అండ్ గుడ్ కాండక్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద కన్విక్ట్ రెమిటింగ్ ద బ్యాలెన్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇంప్రిజన్మెంట్ ఫర్ లైఫ్. గుడ్ బిహేవియర్ అండ్ గుడ్ కండక్ట్ ఉన్నప్పుడు మాత్రమే వాళ్ళని రిలీజ్ చేస్తారు. Only by the government may pass an order. And the third one is imprisonment. In that there is two kinds of punishments, two kinds of imprisonment. One is a rigorous and the second one is simple. Rigorous means with hard labor. Rigorous imprisonment. There are certain offences defined in the Indian Penal Code for which rigorous imprisonment may be imposed by the courts. For example, house trespass, under section 449 of IPC, and fabricating false evidence, under section 194 of IPC. For such offences, rigorous imprisonment may be imposed. In rigorous imprisonment, the convicted person is put to do hard labor such as digging earth. Hard labor means digging earth, cutting stones, agriculture, grinding corn, drawing water, carpentry, etc. The Supreme Court suggested that the offenders imposed hard labor should be paid minimum wages. Minimum wage anta 35 rupees per day. సుప్రీం కోర్టు ఏమో పాస్ చేసింది, మినిమం వేజెస్ పే చేయాలి వాళ్ళకి హార్డ్ లేబర్కి అని చెప్పింది. ద ట్రయల్ కోర్ట్ వైల్ డిస్పోజింగ్ బాంబే బ్లాస్ట్ కేస్ ఇన్ 2007లో బాంబే బ్లాస్ట్ కేస్ కేసులో ట్రయల్ కోర్టు సంజయ్ దత్కి రిగరస్ ఇంప్రిజన్మెంట్ ఇచ్చింది ఫర్ పీరియడ్ ఆఫ్ 6 years until the Supreme Court gave the bail. Sanjay Dutt did carpentry work for 30 days and he earned 39 rupees during that period. While disposing the case Sunil Bhatra versus Delhi administration, the Supreme Court observed hard labor in section 53 has to receive a human meaning and simple imprisonment. The simple imprisonment. This punishment is imposed for lighter offences. Imposed on lighter offences. For example, పబ్లిక్ సర్వెంట్ ఒక అతను ఉంటాడు, అతను అన్లాఫుల్లీ ఏదైనా వర్క్లో ఎంగేజ్ అవ్వడము, unlawfully engaging in any trade practices or unlawfully buying or trading or bidding for property. పబ్లిక్ సర్వెంటే. ఈ సెక్షన్స్ వచ్చేసి 168 to 169. Absconding to avoid service of summons or other proceedings or not attending in obedience to an order from a public servant. And for example, defamation, section 500 of IPC. వీటిలో అంతా wrongful restraint, సెక్షన్ 341 IPC. వీటన్నిటిలో కూడా సింపుల్ ఇంప్రిజన్మెంట్ ఉంటుంది. నెక్స్ట్ వన్ ఈజ్ ద ఫోర్ఫీచర్ ఆఫ్ ది ప్రాపర్టీ. Forfeiture is the specific property without compensation in consequence of some default or act of forbidden by law. What is the forfeiture of property? And forfeiture is the divestiture of specific property without compensation in consequence of some default or act of forbidden by law. The courts may order for forfeiture of the property of the accused in certain occasions. In white collar crimes and where a government employee or any private person accumulates black money and black assets. Black money lo gaani black assets and there is no genuine answer and proof for such money and properties with such person, the court may award for the forfeiture of the property. In cases of smugglers, gundas and anti-national personalities etc., the government or the courts are empowered to forfeiture of property of such anti-social elements. And the next one and final one is the fine. Fine is that the courts may impose fine along with or without imprisonment. Along with or without imprisonment. With or without imprisonment. The Indian Penal Code mentions the punishment of fine for several offences, generally with or without imprisonment. The amount of fine is according to section 63 of IPC. According to section 63 of the IPC, where no sum is expressed to which a fine may be extended, the amount of fine to which the offender is liable to is unlimited but shall not be excessive. Sentence for imprisonment of non-payment of fine. సెక్షన్ 64 ఏం చెప్తుంది? ఒకవేళ ఫైన్ ఇంపోజ్ చేసిన ఫైన్ పే చేయలేకపోతే అతనికి సెంటెన్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇంప్రిజన్మెంట్ ఉంటుంది. ఎవ్రీ కేస్ ఆఫ్ అన్ అఫెన్స్ పనిషబుల్ విత్ ఇంప్రిజన్మెంట్ యాజ్ వెల్ యాజ్ ఫైన్ ఇన్ విచ్ ద అఫెండర్ ఈజ్ సెంటెన్స్ టు ఎ ఫైన్ వెదర్ విత్ ఆర్ వితౌట్ ఇంప్రిజన్మెంట్ అండ్ ఇన్ ఎవ్రీ కేస్ ఆఫ్ అన్ అఫెన్స్ punishable with imprisonment or fine or with fine only, in which the offender is sentenced to fine, it shall be competent to the court which sentences such offender to direct by the sentence that in default of payment of the fine, the offender shall suffer imprisonment for a certain term, which imprisonment shall be in excess of any other imprisonment to which he may have sentenced or which he may have liable under a commutation of a sentence. Limit to imprisonment if fine imposed is not paid. Section 65 ఏం చెప్తుందంటే లిమిట్ టు ఇంప్రిజన్మెంట్ if fine imposed is not paid. The court directs the offender to be imprisoned in default of payment of fine shall not be exceed 1/4 of the term. 1/4 of the term of the imprisonment, which is the maximum fixed for the offence, if the offence be punishable with imprisonment as well as fine. Termination of imprisonment on payment of a fine. సెక్షన్ 68 ఏం చెప్తుందంటే టర్మినేషన్ ఆఫ్ ఇంప్రిజన్మెంట్. Termination of imprisonment on payment of fine. Whenever the fine is paid, the imprisonment shall be terminated forthwith. According to section 69, if before the expiration of the term of imprisonment fixed in default of the payment, such a proportion of the fine be paid or levied that the term of imprisonment suffered in default of payment is not less than proportional to the part of the fine still unpaid, the imprisonment shall be terminated. ఇల్లుస్ట్రేషన్ తీసుకుంటే ఏ సెంటెన్స్ టు ఏ ఫైన్ ఆఫ్ 100 rupees and 4 months imprisonment in default of payment. Here, if 70 rupees of the fine paid or levied before the expiration of 1 month of the imprisonment, A will be discharged as soon as the first month expired. If 70 rupees paid, 75 rupees. If 70 rupees is paid or levied at the time of expiration of first month or at any later time while A continues in imprisonment, A will be immediately discharged. Completion of 1 month. In completion of 1 month. If 50 rupees fine paid or levied before the expiration of 2 months, the imprisonment A will be discharged as soon as possible in 2 months are completed. If 50 rupees to be paid or levied at the time of the expiration of these 2 months or any later time while A continues in imprisonment, A will be immediately discharged. This is about the kinds of the punishments. Thank you.